Hello and good afternoon. My name is Evin Levey. I'm a product manager at Google for Google Apps Script. And today we're going to be talking about scripting Google Apps for business process automation. We're going to do a live wave of this talk, same as all the others, and this is the bit.ly link. I should point out that that's a 304D. You can save yourselves 20 minutes trying to figure out why the link doesn't work if you know that's a capital O. All right, so maybe I'd ask for a quick show of hands if anybody can tell me if they've used AppScript before. Okay, so quite a few people. And folks maybe who don't know what AppScript is, if you can make yourself, okay, so only one or two. That's good, that's good. All right, so Google Apps Script is really about business process automation. That's what we're going to talk about today. It customizes and extends Google Apps. And really, it's a cloud scripting language. So all code runs server-side. And that can be a little bit confusing for some because it's actually JavaScript that we're using as a language. But it runs on Google servers, and there's nothing happening in your browser. All right. So the agenda for today. First off, we're going to talk about the book of Bob. We're going to make introductions. We're going to talk about the fundamentals of AppScript. We're going to talk about events, interoperability with non-Google services, custom UI generation, and standalone script invocation. And then after talking about the book of Bob, we're going to have a special guest from Motorola, Stephanie Anthony, who's going to tell us about their portfolio on Google tool, Motorola's Pogo. So let's get started with introductions. This is Acme Corp. It's a small company, pretty fast-paced. Everybody works 80 hours a week, all very demanding and high-maintenance people. And this is Bob, and Bob's the help desk. And Bob's responsibility is to keep everybody at Acme Corp happy. And as a result, he's not happy. He spends his time acting as a gopher and a handyman and doing all the grunt work for everybody else at the company. So Bob started out with a spreadsheet, and you can see Bob's spreadsheet is very well organized. It's all color-coded and very easy for him to decipher, but it does take a lot of maintenance to keep such a task list up to date. There's pretty significant overhead in keeping on top of his tasks. Bob started to automate his spreadsheet by adding this great little feature from Google Forms. Has everybody used the Google Forms before? Okay, about half the people. Does anybody not know what they are? Okay, so Google Forms, when you're in a spreadsheet, you're able to set up a very simple form designer, and you can publish it to a URL so that when anybody comes along to that URL and enters text and hits submit, it goes straight into your spreadsheet. So it's a nice labor-saving device for Bob. Instead of answering telephone calls and transcribing emails and putting everything into the spreadsheet, he just directs people to the form, they type in their data, hit submit, and it appears in his spreadsheet. So it's very good in as far as it goes, but it doesn't go far enough, and AppScript can help. It can help take some of the busy work out of his day-to-day chores. So with AppScript, Bob has been able to add a special menu to his spreadsheet called Bob's Menu. And from there, he's able to send status emails, schedule appointments, and even push articles to a Google Sites knowledge base. So at this stage, we're really talking about the fundamentals of AppScript. And let's walk through a couple of those examples, starting with sending an email. So we've got some JavaScript code on the screen. The first little block defines a few custom menus. We're saying when the spreadsheet opens, let's set up two menus, one to send a status email and one to schedule an appointment. And then the bottom function is the email sending function. And very briefly, we reach into the spreadsheet, we pull out whatever row has been selected, and from that, we construct an email to inform the user the status of their query. So we've got a little demo of this in operation. So we highlight the row that's of interest, or Bob highlights the row that's of interest, chooses his menu, sends the status email, and then if we flip over to the Gmail account of the user, you see that they get an email from Bob that tells them that their issue has been updated. Okay, so a nice little labor-saving trick. Now we have a second example, very, very similar. This one simply figures out the next free slot for Bob to meet with the person having a problem and books the event on both people's calendars. And so poor Wayne has a problem with his hard disk. Bob needs to stop by and take a look. Our little script runs. The status gets updated. And you'll see that if we refresh the calendar, both Bob and Wayne now have an event scheduled at a time that's convenient to both of them. So this type of thing saves Bob a few keystrokes, a few clicks, a few minutes every time he updates the status of a ticket. He can send an email very quickly, and every time he needs to meet with somebody, he doesn't have to open up the calendar and hunt around for an appropriate time. So, he's saving a few minutes every time he does this, maybe adding up to 30 minutes a day, several hours a month for an upfront investment of a couple of hours of JavaScript. So it's a pretty good deal. Bob gets a lot more productive, but really there's a lot more we can do. Instead of Bob having to actively choose to do these things, maybe we can automate it all a little bit more. And so this is why we're going to talk about events. Events system allows you to run a script in response to an event that happens, or a trigger. And the function that we run is known as an event handler. So here we've got an onEdit. Every time Bob edits the spreadsheet, we're going to do some trickery with the colors and update the status of the issues. So it's a very simple demo, a lot better when you see it in action. As Bob changes his status row, you'll see that the color coding on his spreadsheet changes automatically. This makes it easy to keep his spreadsheet legible and up to date without continually having to reformat. Okay. So event handlers. AppScript has two different types of event handlers. The first type is a simple event handler that is automatically run in response to actions happening on the spreadsheet. The name of the function associates it with an event. So onOpen is run when the spreadsheet is opened, onEdit is run when the spreadsheet is edited, and so forth. These simple event handlers run in a very, very tight security sandbox. They're not allowed to do anything too crazy. They can access the spreadsheet, they can color code things, but they're able to create menus, for example, but they're not allowed to look at anybody's private data. The second type of event handler is new. We're introducing it today, and it's an installable event handler. This type of handler must be explicitly installed, and it's a lot more functional. So it can do things like send email and access calendars. So these installable event handlers, there's a small but growing selection of events that we can capture. Similar to the simple ones, there's onEdit and onOpen, but we've also added onFormSubmit. So when somebody submits, I see cheers in the back row. This is the #1 feature request on our forum, so we're really happy to push it out. It went out about 2 hours ago. So when somebody submits the form, it goes into the spreadsheet, and then we can do some processing with our script and send out an email, for example, or do something with the information. We also have clock events, so you can schedule a script to run hourly, daily, weekly, or whatnot. So let's have a look at how we do this. From our script editor, we select triggers. There's nothing set up yet. And so in this case, we're going to run the form submit reply function in response to an event from the spreadsheet, and that's the onFormSubmit event. So we save it, we go back into our spreadsheet form, we type in, as a user would, some kind of complaint about a broken mouse wheel. And when this gets submitted, the script runs in the background, and immediately we can switch back to email, and you see that the script has sent out a little update. It's actually counted how many issues are ahead of this particular person in the line, and it's able to say, hey, there are 15 active tickets ahead of you, so you'll be waiting a while. This means that Bob can be very productive even when he's in bed. It's 11 a.m., Bob hasn't gotten up yet, But everybody at Acme Corp is getting these emails telling them where they are in the queue, and they're all very impressed. So Bob's system is getting pretty awesome. We've got forms coming in, emails going out automatically, and then a bunch of shortcuts in the menu. And Bob gets a promotion. He's still in bed, by the way, so he doesn't know he's got the promotion, but when he gets to work, he'll hear all about it. That's great. It takes us a little bit further. Bob has cut out a lot of busy work, but Acme Corp is growing. They're getting very big, and so they've brought in a lot of rules. There's all kinds of spending limits and managerial approval required. Nowadays, Bob is spending half his time on Amazon purchasing new keyboards and mice and chairs and monitors. The other half of his time, he's trying to track down managers' approval for such items. So he really needs something a little bit more integrated into his existing systems that aren't part of Google. So we're going to talk a little about that interoperability with non-native services or non-Google services. The first one, I know this is pretty intimidating, there's a lot of code up there, but the first one is SOAP and XML. SOAP and REST are really the language of, or the protocols of web services. And so in order to talk to anything outside of Google, we're able to leverage these and make calls to nice services like Amazon, for example. So I'll run through this code very briefly. The first few lines connect to Amazon. Then we get a little security header that has a special key that Amazon will give out to anybody free of charge. And then the big block in the middle really just says that we're going to request a keyword search across all of Amazon. Then we grab the results, and at the very end, you'll see that we pull out the name and price and maybe some other details. So not really all that much code, and we get something pretty nice like this, a custom spreadsheet function that can find on Amazon. Okay. And it really does run that fast. It's pretty sweet. Okay. Okay. We're also introducing JDBC today. This was released again just a few hours ago. And this means that as well as talking to Amazon, so Bob can automatically add things to his cart and purchase them, he can also talk to his own back-end data stores, and he can find out, for example, in the query here, who somebody's manager is, so he can then ask that person for spending approval. So we don't have a flashy demo of JDBC today, but we do have some great demos on our website where we integrate with Amazon Web Services. They have a very nice MySQL database in the cloud called RDS, and I'd urge everybody to play with AppScript integrating with MySQL on Amazon. It works very well. So Bob's system has gotten pretty awesome. We have the forms coming in, the emails going out, all the shortcuts in the menu, integration with Amazon, both as a back-end database provider and as a shopping cart order system. So it's working very well. Bob thinks this is wonderful, but really there's something missing. We've got all this great power, and our users are still using this pretty primitive and static interface. And Bob has to figure out what their text means and then go off and uses shortcuts to do all this extra lookup work. So today, we're also going to talk about customizing the user interface, the user experience for scripts. And this is new, again, released just a few hours ago, and we're now able to build graphical user interfaces inside scripts. So Bob's menu has a new item, Show UI, and we get the little Acme Corp help desk form. We've got the JDBC query running in to find out who's loaded the form, who their manager is, their location, their phone number, their spending approval limits. And they're able to now submit their problems with their mice in the same way as they could on the static form. So, a couple of hundred lines of JavaScript later, and we've replicated the wonderful Google Spreadsheet Forms. So we're not really leveraging the power of a dynamic UI. We are able to tell the user that they need spending approval, and we are able to put things into the spreadsheet. But really, we need to extend the capabilities and do something more interesting. So let's try something else. Let's give a second option. Instead of reporting a problem, let's try ordering stuff. And we know that John needs a mouse. So we do our query, and you'll see that we pull back our results from Amazon, including a nice little picture, and we decide we want an Apple Magic Mouse. We submit the request. And now, because we've got this JDBC backend, we know that John doesn't have the spending power to buy a mouse for $69.99, and it's going to need to get approval from his manager. Okay. So this is great as far as it goes, but I think the eagle-eyed among you will have noticed that we're still running inside a spreadsheet. And Bob doesn't want people coming into his spreadsheet to raise these forms. They'll just mess with this nice color coding and his formatting. So again, today we're releasing another new feature, Standalone Script Invocation. And inside our script editor, we're able to publish the service out to our domain. Now, this is a Google Apps Premier feature only today. And what we'll allow you to do is run it yourself, or share the service with yourself, or share the service with people on your domain. It's not available to regular Gmail users just yet. So now if we put all these pieces together, let's have a look at Bob's system running from start to finish. First, we publish the URL. Bob distributes this on the help desk page, or make sure that it's in everybody's browser bookmarks. And then John comes back to the help desk via a bookmark in his browser. He knows immediately that he's ordering something new, a keyboard, runs the query, and great, I'll take a Logitech keyboard. But looking down the list, John also decides that he'd like a nice Casio keyboard, and decides to chance his arm and see if it'll get through approvals. We pop up a little message saying that he's approval. We go to the manager's email, and the manager gets nicely formatted message saying, hey, John wants to buy a couple of keyboards. Manager does a bit of a double take, isn't quite sure what to make of this, and says, no, we won't be having that. Gets a nice little message reinforcing the good approval behavior. Bob comes back to the spreadsheet later on, hasn't been involved in the process up to this point, and the spreadsheet tells him that John requested 2 keyboards, the manager approved one, rejected the other, and the script has gone off and already placed the order with Amazon. So this is the basics of a workflow spending approval system. Hope we've outlined reasonably well how you can put these pieces together for business process automation. Now, Bob's little story is very nice, but we've also got Stephanie Anthony from Motorola, who's been using AppScript for the last 6 months, and she's going to tell you about their progress and how their processes have been automated in a more real-world setting.
Hi, I'm Stephanie Anthony from Motorola. We deployed Gmail last year for mobile devices, and right after that we started looking at the power of Google Apps to replace some of our IT tools. Everybody knows docs and sites are great for collaborating and getting internet sites up and running, but we saw a lot of power with AppScript to actually replace some of our expensive tools. So the first area of opportunity we looked at was our IT project and portfolio management tool. And when we looked further, we found that our costs annually were approaching $1 million. Yes, so we decided to see what we could do with AppScript, and based on the results, we're now looking to replace other tools. Oh, we call the tool Pogo, or Portfolio on Google. From a functional point of view, it's got proposal data, which is like your pre-project data. This is standard portfolio management. It's the stuff to get authorized before you create a project. We've got budget forecasts and staffing forecasts. We've got project data. To get from a proposal to a project, you of course have to go through portfolio governance, the standard stuff. There's approvals. The portfolio manager creates a project. The project has different fields, carries over some data, but of course there's different. Budget forecast and actuals for the project. We've got staffing forecasts. Then we have named resource assignment, in management, which means that we know what people by name are working on which projects or proposals during which months, so we can see our resources. And then in terms of reporting, we focused on, up at the top, the project dashboards for health and key data. We've got our target spend versus approved and unapproved spend. For resource management, it's the standard stuff in all the tools. Resources requested by month, allocated by month. Compare that against our capacity. We've got resource allocation percentages. All the stuff your resource managers just love to see. And then in terms of individual project reporting, we've got milestone completions, requirements volatility, and post-release defects. Then we roll up the project stuff to the organizational level, because we have to report these metrics at our organizational level. We also had the work breakdown structure inside of Google Apps in the docs. It is definitely possible. We had it there last year. But the users really just wanted to use their own desktop tools. So we gave in on that for now. Also, we had issues, risks, decisions, and action items inside of this tool. And we piloted it with one of our major programs at Motorola. What we found, though, once we started showing them Google Apps, they're like, oh, we need this team calendar, and oh, we need these collaboration documents, and oh, shouldn't we have our own Google site? So for that program, we ended up making its own Google site with the shared calendars and all the different documents. And then we had issue, risk, action, and decision trackers we put in there. And we put standard scripts in there, scripts that email you for overdue issues, overdue action items. We've got things that inside the spreadsheet checks for invalid data, and IDs, just different functions. And so we made a standard set of spreadsheet and site, and we're giving that to the program. So we're saying, here's your standard set, go ahead and customize it. Because as you know, every program is different. They need some different field. We really couldn't say, everybody, these are your issue fields, because everybody's different. So, we need to switch computers for that demo? Okay. Okay. So we're deploying this in August of this year. Right now it's in prototype mode. It's called Pogo, or Portfolio on Google, and little Android guys jumping on a pogo stick. This is a Flash gadget that we have. And then over here, our proposal data is also done through gadgets. The reason, I'm sure everybody here has made a spreadsheet form. It takes 5 minutes. It's not a big deal. But the reason that we needed to put the form in a gadget until his user interface thing came out is that we wanted the users to be able to edit in the form as well as do data entry. Because right now, if you use spreadsheet forms, they enter the data, it's all nice, you've got all these different field values, all these different drop downs, and then when they go to edit it, they're in a spreadsheet, they type whatever in there and you've got a mess. Also, we wanted to hide things like the proposal ID, which carries with the proposal through the life cycle, and different formulas and stuff, so we needed to use a gadget. So this gadget, so this is a proposal that exists. I found it by number. Already in our existing tool, everything has numbers, so it follows the proposal through the life cycle. And I can change a value in the drop-downs. And when I press submit, this goes to a temporary spreadsheet. Then there's a trigger that runs, that moves, the trigger that runs AppScript. It moves it from the temporary spreadsheet to the master if the data is qualified to move. So we recently got triggers about 2 weeks ago, and they're great because up until this point, we actually had a button the users had to push to kick off AppScript, which was completely annoying. Now they can stay in the form, we've got the triggers running with these temp tables, and we're able to control the data that goes to the master. So from a process point of view, they do their proposal entry. There's also portfolio data, which is locked down for just the portfolio managers. The portfolio managers go through their portfolio governance boards. It becomes a project. At the same time, we also have budget and staffing forecasts over here. The project forms similar to this, different data, some of it carries over, budget and staffing forecasts. But what people always want to know is how we're doing named resource management. So we could have people enter their resource requests in a form, but we have large projects at Motorola, and so you can't ask someone to enter a form entry 50 times. They're just not going to do it. So what we have is a spreadsheet. It is a spreadsheet, but the users are actually happy about this. They enter very little data. They enter like the user's name that they want, the project number, and then the spreadsheet app script goes and pulls all the other data from the master, because we've got user masters and project masters, and it pulls all the data back. It validates all the information they put in. Like you can't request a person to work more than full-time on a project, that kind of validation. Then once it's been validated, they push another button and it sends it to the resource request master. Then, once a day, the resource managers get an email like this. So with resource management, anybody who has a resource management tool, the resource managers, it's not just one person, it's usually there's a backup. So my boss forwarded me this. So him and his backup got this email. It's requesting resources to work on a project straight to their Gmail. Here's my name, and here's the project number. Here's the project name. Here's a little note about why they want me to work on this. Then how much time do they want from me? FTE, if you're not familiar with resource management, is full-time equivalent. So like 1 is 1 man month. So basically in June, they want me to work 75% on this project, July 50, August 50, and so on. My manager can click and say, see all commitments for resource, and that'll show them everything else I'm already committed to. It's a list view that's pre-filtered. Down below, you can see there's another person also that he can approve down here for a different project. So what happens is all the outstanding resource requests that haven't been approved or rejected show up in the email. So let's say he ignores this today. Tomorrow, these will be back with any additional ones. So we think this will actually help us because besides the expensive tool we have now, we've actually had other expensive project management tools. And our main problem is the data integrity, because we can have the fanciest tool in the world, but if people won't update the data, you've got nothing. And that's a big problem with resource management, because resource managers, you've got all these people, they don't want to log into a tool. They don't care. So we're thinking with the email, they're going to get their data in. It'll be a lot easier for them. And we're actually thinking they won't even realize that they're in Pogo or using Google Apps. Because to approve, all you do is click this button here, and it's pre-filled out. You know, there's the project, there's the person. So if I press submit here, what happens is it goes to a temporary spreadsheet. Then there's a wonderful trigger that goes and runs app script, and if the data is qualified to be in the master, it'll move it. In this case, I'm not authorized to approve myself to work on this project, so while this is going to submit, I'm not actually going to be assigned to the project. It's going to take my manager or his backup to push the button before it'd actually be approved. So there is some security there. So what's the point of all this resource request? Is that you want to get resource data for decision making. So resource pool is like a group, it's like a team. Let me get my team. This is also a gadget, also running on a timer. Right now, all of our timed triggers are running for every minute because we haven't really done load testing. We're planning to do load testing over the next month, and we're planning to deploy in August. So everything's running on a minute. Obviously, you don't need to update charts every minute, so this will probably be moved to more of a 5-minute type of thing. We have triggers that update charts, we have triggers that send emails, we have triggers that are moving the data from one table to another. And what's really funny is our very expensive tool we have today actually has a bunch of scheduled jobs that run scripts to update the resource and the budget data, so it's very similar. So what this chart means is in February, you can see it's about 3.5 FTE, or people, full-time equivalent, working on projects. Then it spikes up in April and May, gets to about 4.5, and then it dies off. So let's say my capacity is 4 people in this group. I can see that I've actually over-allocated my team in April and May, but we have a lot of capacity coming up towards the end of the summer. So it can help me for decision making in terms of what am I going to do with my resources, what can I commit them to. Then, at least in Motorola, everybody has to have everything in Excel for their pivot tables and all their analysis. So on all of our charts, we have an option here to export the data as CSV, opens it up in Excel, they can do whatever they want with it. This is actually also another advantage of our current tool. Because we have such a fancy tool right now, we export the data from our fancy tool to a data mart inside of Motorola twice per day. We've got people watching those extracts. We've got people watching the loads. We've got support people all along that whole chain trying to get that data into our data mart. Plus, when you're trying to make a decision, you could be making a decision on data that's 11, 12 hours old. And that's just a fact because of what we have today. But with Google, all this data is real time. They can get to all the data whenever they want, so they can make real-time decisions. We let everybody see all the data. As far as updating the data, we do have the lockdown, like with the portfolio managers and resource approvals. But everybody can see it, so it's open. Let's see, what else do we have? In terms of the project data, they need to see their project dashboards and see what's going on with the different projects. So you can do, this is really easy with the spreadsheet functions in the app script, pull different data together for different dashboards that managers want to see. down here, we used to have automated health. Automated health is actually an easy thing to turn on. So it's, you have different metrics. Based on the thresholds in the metrics, you can make the colors red, green, or yellow. So you can decide if a project's gone red, green, yellow for cost or whatever. So we had that on, but then the project manager said no, they want to set the colors themselves. So we're back to letting them set the colors of red, green, or yellow. We do have automated metrics though, so we didn't turn those off. We have the triggers that go out, and I mean, we're already capturing this data. We've got budget actuals versus plan. See, this project's 93% on budget. Resources committed versus planned. Milestone completion, requirements volatility, post-release defects. All the information that the project managers want to see, and then they can report up to their management. So we went into this just seeing, what could be done. This is not anybody's full-time job. We've been working on this since August, like a couple hours a week. August, because that's when AppScript came out. And then what's really exciting about AppScript is that things keep getting better and better, like the triggers that just came out 2 weeks ago. So it's really been exciting to see all that change. And so we've been working with the team, prototyping this, demoing it at Motorola. Different people are on it. And what's cool is that now people are actually asking for this not because it's cheaper, but because it's better in some ways, especially the integration with email, the real-time data. So there's actually demand for it, not just because it's cheaper. So thanks to the AppScript, we're able to deploy a lightweight application without all the overhead of a packaged tool. Am I supposed to stay up here?
That's great. All right. Thank you very much, Stephanie. So you can see that we have Bob and his little use case and building up a help desk system around a spreadsheet from scratch, incremental, evolutionary. And then we have Stephanie at Motorola, who's replacing a $1 million a year system with AppScript and Google Apps. And so it's a pretty compelling story, I think. So let's maybe do a summary of what we've covered today. AppScript talks to Google products, and it's done that for a long time, and that's what it's all about. It's the glue that lets our products talk to one another. AppScript talks to SOAP, REST, the language of the web, and now it talks to JDBC, MySQL today, Oracle and MS SQL coming very shortly. And AppScript talks to users. We have a fully capable UI stack now exposed again just today. Again, Motorola is saving over $1 million per year using this stack. So we announced a lot of new capabilities in AppScript today, and some blog posts on Monday. We've got the new installable event handlers. They allow you to run scripts based on events that happen inside spreadsheets or based on clock events, so particular times of the day, particular days of the week, and whatnot. We've got new JDBC interoperability. We can talk to MySQL, wherever it may be, Amazon RDS in the cloud or your own hosted solution. And we've got the new AppScript UI and standalone invocation. And standalone invocation, while it may seem like a footnote, this is really the thing that allows us to bust out of the spreadsheet jail. So it's taking AppScript from being an embedded language to being something that's much more standalone and fully capable for users. And there's a little bit more that we haven't covered today, a few more announcements. We have a new documents list capability. We can read files from your Google Docs list. You can create and modify files too, but that's a Google Apps only feature. So consumer users on Gmail won't get that one just yet. We've got a new Maps API. This is kind of cute, maybe not immediately relevant to the enterprise, but you can create maps, get directions, do some limited geocoding and elevation. And in 2 weeks, we don't usually pre-announce, but in 2 weeks, we'll have Google Documents extensions. So you'll be able to script our new document editor using AppScript. Not the existing one, but the new one that we announced back on April 12th. I think most of you will be able to access that in preview mode. We also have a few more pre-announcements just to give you a sense of where AppScript is going over the next 3 to 6 months. In Q3, we're going to launch AppScript in Sites. So today, as we've mentioned several times, AppScript really lives inside spreadsheets, and we're excited to be able to publish scripts as services. Going forward, AppScript will also live inside Google Sites and inside the new document editor. We've even got a screenshot of AppScript inside Sites. You'll be able to manage your scripts in there, throw up the script editor, and also catch events from Google Sites the same way you can from Spreadsheets today. So I'd urge you all to try AppScript. We have a Google short link for AppScript. Our regular URL is long and unwieldy, so definitely give it a go. I urge you to try it, and we're very responsive to feedback, so if you have any comments or questions, please do hit our user support forum. We're looking forward to hearing from you. Okay, so maybe we'll stop there and go for questions.
Yeah, this is Wietse de Vries. I'm with MWV. I'm a user of Google Apps Premier Edition. And in your slides, it talked about publishing something to a knowledge base, and you didn't show that in your demo. Could you talk about that?
Sorry, I didn't catch the question part.
In your slides, you showed that there was an option on the menu to publish from the help desk to a knowledge base.
Yes, absolutely.
And I don't think you showed that part. You showed pushing an email, you showed the other thing, but you didn't show the third.
That's right. We will publish that as a code example. We skipped over it. It was an example, but it's very easy to do. AppScript can talk natively to Google Sites, and so there's a very nice API where you can create a page and push data into it. So when we will release all the code for the demos we showed today, and I'll make sure that we include the Sites example. It just seemed to be a little repetitive once you've seen the others.
We work with the Spreadsheet Data API. We just recently started integrating with that, and we wanted to have certain things automated based on data we push in. Will app scripts run like on edit or whatever from the Data API?
That's a very good question. I would say that probably does not. I think you have to be a live user using the spreadsheet or an on-form submit event. Accessing through the GData API, I think, is a kind of a non-user operation.
Okay, just I know the apps marketplace was recently released, and the apps domains can have installed apps, and we would like to be able to interoperate like that. So,
yeah, absolutely. I think AppScript is certainly one of the pieces that you can build into your manifest for the apps marketplace, and so I think that you will be able to have that functionality in the future.
Thanks.
Okay.
Yes, will you be bringing some of the App Engine features and capabilities closer to AppScript? Will they work together in the future?
Maybe you could elaborate a little.
So for example, in Business App Engine, they talked about SQL database as a part of App Engine. Maybe it's service invocation. Is there any thoughts on making AppScript work in a more unified manner with App Engine?
Yeah, so you can absolutely call App Engine from AppScript today. There's full interoperability there. We didn't cover it in the talk. It's something that we've had for over a year. In terms of database services, certainly we're always looking for more database providers. We understand that it's a very important component for you. And so JDBC is obviously our first step in that direction.
Has anyone been using this to create Scrum tools?
Yes, absolutely. So I think at Google we're well known for eating our own dog food. And our engineering director in New York City, where the AppScript team is based and a lot of the apps products are developed, actually has a full tracking system built in AppScript. And it's caught on pretty well. It's caught on like wildfire. All of our teams at Google use it.
Are those available?
I'll ask him. I think it would be a great example to post on our templates page.
Thank you.
Hi, thanks very much. Are there any limitations for any of the examples you've been showing to provide notifications or workflow outside of the domain? So conceivably as the Google Apps reseller or the individual that is acting as the help desk for numerous domains, that these types of applications could be deployed for that purpose?
That's a really good question. I know that there's a lot of complex scenarios that arise in real-world business situations, We've been working with partners to address those. I think that in most cases, everything just works the way we showed it working here today. There are a few interesting security implications for some of the things that we've shown. The primary one is standalone script invocation, so where you publish your script as a service and you can distribute then a URL. People hit the URL and your script gets run. We've been very cautious with that one to date, and that's why we're only allowing it to run for that logged in user or for users on that app's domain. So I think that that would not work in your scenario, but we're figuring out the right way to roll it out for cross-domain and potentially even consumer users in the future. So potentially consumer users in the future.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hi, great stuff. For the JDBC services, I'm assuming that it's only going to work, since you're executing on the server side, it's only going to work for a cloud-based service like Amazon Web Services or a hosted solution. What about operability with the secure data connector to pull from an internal resource?
Absolutely, that's a great question. We do have support for JDBC inside the secure data connector now. It's not quite ready for public consumption, but we expect to get it out the door within the next few weeks, let's put it that way. I don't have a firm date. The SDC team did ask us to announce that and make it clear to everybody that if you're using SDC today, you will automatically be able to have your JDBC tunneled through the secure data connector into your organization and hit your own intranet and databases hosted there. Great question, thank you. Okay.
Is there support for electronic signatures in workflow processes?
Sorry, I didn't catch that, could you repeat?
Support for electronic signatures?
Electronic signatures, not any specific support at this time. It is a question that we get every once in a while, and I think that there's a big push, especially with some of the great products in the apps marketplace. I think that that's something that we'll address pretty soon. Okay, I think we have some live wave questions. When you say business process automation, I think you were talking about a modeler and an engine that will execute the process. Is this something that you already have besides Blueprint that uses Git? If no, please take a look at www.processmaker.com. That's a great question. I'm sure there is a question in there somewhere rather than just an advert. Let's put it this way. There are a lot of rules engines out there, and they do a phenomenal job. I don't know that that's the exact strength that we're aiming for. That's not really our niche. If that's something that everybody feels is really lacking from AppScript, I think that we can certainly move in that direction. But we're really talking about glue here that talks to other best-of-breed products. And so I think that maybe Process Maker is a great solution for a rules engine that would integrate well with AppScript. When will we be able to use submitting a form as a trigger for a script, preferably with our script making a custom results page? The first part, you can do it now. It went live a few hours ago. The second part, the script making a custom results page, is not possible, and not possible today. And the reason for that is you're dealing with the spreadsheet form, and the spreadsheet form just returns its standard response. Whereas even with our GUI capabilities, you're not hitting our service, you're hitting the form service. So it's definitely one of the next steps we'll take, but the second part is just not possible today. Where do I find more info on custom user interfaces for scripts? We do have a user guide that's just been pushed in the last few hours. It goes into a lot of detail about how to get up to speed on writing server-side JavaScript with Google Apps Script. And in there, there's the kernel of a tutorial on using the new UI functionality. I'd urge everybody to start there. It's very Gwit-like. In fact, this incarnation is based on Gwit. And so if you're familiar with that, it should be no problem to you.
Could you think of or describe an architecture a bit like the Motorola one where they used forms to not only insert records in the system, but to update records. The scenario I'm thinking, the business problem is that you only want to let certain users, perhaps the author of that record, be able to edit them.
So with Spreadsheet Forms today, there's no ability to go back and change a response. And I know it is a highly requested feature. With AppScript, on the other hand, now that we've got a fully capable UI, you saw that we were able to pre-populate some of the fields with the results from a JDBC query or SQL query. So you can absolutely build that today with AppScript. In fact, one of the demos on our templates page populates the form from the spreadsheet, lets the user edit and submit back, and the rows change and update. And obviously, we're very content to have a spreadsheet be our data store because it's such a nice and fast interface to Google Spreadsheets. But naturally, you could pull that data from any source at all, including MySQL database. Okay. Are there any plans to provide ODBC connectivity for sites/docs, scripts that will allow direct connection to internal behind the firewall databases using SDC? I think we've probably covered that one already. There's a few pieces that have to fall into place. We will release JDBC through SDC in the next few weeks. And then in Q3, we'll have sites and docs be embedded containers for AppScript. And so while you're able to do most of these things today, I think to get the complete solution to the question will be maybe a couple of months ahead.
Yes, hi. I was curious to find out whether or not you have in your roadmap anything that would allow people that are marketplace application developers to package scripts that would then become ubiquitous in the target customer's environment, since, there are lots of benefits to doing that if you're an application developer.
So I think the short answer is no, we don't have that today. What we have inside Google Spreadsheets is a script gallery, and I don't know that many of you will have seen it, but you can hit Insert Script, and it gives you a little pop-up like the Gadget gallery, and you can install user-generated content. That's actually backed by the Google Apps Marketplace. Obviously, there's no fee for any of those scripts. The source code is freely available. It really helps with transparency and auditing what the code is actually doing. There's definitely that's definitely a consumer-focused piece of the picture. Inside a Google Apps domain, what we intend to offer is a domain-specific gallery along the lines of the existing domain-specific template gallery and Gadgets gallery. I think as we move in that direction over the next few months, you'll begin to see more capabilities to install scripts for a domain and do some kind of deployment management. For example, every spreadsheet at Motorola perhaps would have a specific script that runs and audits use of the product or something like that.
Yeah, and so for this use case, it would be great if you could install that as part of a marketplace application installation process.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so I'm not sure if there are more questions in our wave. Maybe no more live questions. Oh, one more.
Actually, it's not a question, actually, just Stephanie, I think. Stephanie, right? Thanks for your presentation, because, we've been hearing about this for a while, but you just kind of look at a live system that actually works and some use cases that you can really use for business. I guess with business users are a little dumb, but, just to see something that kind of comes together is really helpful with forms and, a menu going to the left-hand side and how you can use these things to do that. So that was great. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Hi.
I've got a question maybe for Stephanie. How do you deal with the governance of your code? You've got spreadsheets, you've got sites. They have to be long-lived across the owners of those spreadsheets and the owners of those sites leaving the company, perhaps their accounts being deleted. How have you managed that internally so that you don't delete an important business spreadsheet that's used by many people?
Well, for our app script, Part of the reason we want the people in Forms is because we don't want people getting to the scripts. So we do keep the actual users out of the scripts, but then we are backing up all of our code. And Motorola is big on code control and all of our code being locked down. So we are taking copies and saving it all.
But what if the person that created the script leaves? Then that document will be deleted.
Oh, well, for instance, not actually in this one, in a different thing that we did, I made a site for a very top secret kind of thing at Motorola, so I can't see the data. I'm not allowed to see the data. So I made it, and then I made someone else the owner, and so I transferred ownership to him. And we've got other things where we actually share ownership. So we try never to have one person owning something. We try to have multiple people owning it. But I really like that you can create something and then just transfer the ownership away, and then you're totally locked out of it. That really helps for us.
I think that's actually a great question in terms of ownership, and it comes up regularly for all of Google Apps. I think that what we envision inside the AppScript team in particular is a notion of a role account. And so there wouldn't be a particular employee that owns the document or the script. Obviously, we intend to bust out of spreadsheets, so scripts will be standalone, but the same problems will apply, that if the role account gets deleted, the data gets deleted too. But obviously, role accounts hopefully won't be leaving the company to move on to bigger and better things. Okay. I think
this might be kind of a weird question, but I'm a systems integrator. We used to laugh, we still do it, people that have legacy applications like this built on Lotus Notes, and they want to migrate it to something new. Help me understand how you kind of convince people that, are they just locking into another scripting language and silo?
Yeah. So this is actually something that keeps me up at night. Google is all about basically keeping ourselves honest so that users have the ability to take their data away and go somewhere else at any time. And when we're not locking you in, it forces us to stay ahead and keep innovating and keep moving. And code written on a system like this, it's a big investment. You sink a lot of cost, a lot of time into rebuilding your systems on Google Apps Script. Hopefully not that much money and not that much time. That's our goal. But it's still an investment. And then at that stage, you have sunk cost. So what do? I have no solution. I have no answer for you. I recognize that it's a problem. If you have solutions for it that can make us more open and transparent, I'd really love to hear them. Okay, I think we'll probably leave it there. I'd like to thank everybody for all the great questions, and please try AppScript.